What's up, everybody? Eddie Barco here with the Nebula Music Podcast, and today I'm excited to be speaking with Emily Elbert. Now, Emily is an amazing singer-songwriter who's always posting amazing videos of herself playing guitar, not to mention that her music is absolutely phenomenal. But to top it off, this girl is so talented that she got a chance to tour with Esperanza Spalding. I mean, the Esperanza Spalding got this girl to tour with her, and it's just unbelievable that she has all these experiences under her belt. I learned so much from this woman just by listening and taking in what she was telling me, and so I am very excited to share this episode with you guys. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I'm really excited to have Emily Elbert join me on today's episode. Emily, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, Eddie. Thanks.
You know, before the show started, I was actually talking with Emily, complimenting her voice, saying how relaxed and how calm you sound. That it's really nice to listen to you speak, and you must have been doing some vocal warm-ups.
I'm just playing. I wasn't.
Well, you could have fooled me, but you know what? I don't want to waste any time talking about you. I want to make sure that you get a chance to talk about yourself. So for someone who hasn't heard about you before, why don't you go ahead and let us know, how you got started, about your music, maybe where you're from, and what you're currently up to today.
Well, hi, everybody. My name's Emily, and I live in LA these days, but I spend a lot of time on the road playing shows in different places, and I grew up in Dallas, Texas, in and around Dallas, Texas. And I've done a lot of my musical and life work by playing solo and writing original music. But then I've also been involved in some other projects, collaborative projects. Most recently, one with one of my heroes and now a dear friend, Esperanza Spalding. And so was a part of her band for a while, her last project. We made a record and played a lot of really beautiful shows. And so now, I'm just kind of working on a variety of things, but one kind of the cornerstone of what I do most often is play and write original music.
Let me ask this. Where are you originally from? I know you said you're living in LA now, but where were you born or where did you grow up in?
So I was born in Dallas, Texas, and then I spent most of my school years and stuff in a suburb of Dallas called Coppell. My family's all from Texas.
I can hear a little bit of the twang, just a tiny bit, like a little
It comes
hit.
and goes a little bit situationally, but it's in there. It's in there.
How long has it been since you moved to LA?
I moved to LA just over 3 years ago, coming up on 4. But I before that, I spent several years just not really having a place, just kind of floating and subletting, and then previously was in New York and Boston. So a little bit of everything.
It seems like you really like that whole, or at least before, you were doing the whole traveling musician, playing gigs everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you this. How did you decide to go that route? Just because I know that there's different routes you can take, especially after school, and especially if you want to pursue music. What made you decide to just go off on your own, do your own music, and just start doing mini tours, basically?
I mean, it partially feels like a result of a snowball effect, I mean, I always wanted to, or at least since I started playing guitar when I was a teenager, I really wanted to be, I really wanted music to be my life's work, but I don't know, I think it snowballed a bit when I was early on in my guitar playing experience, when I was maybe 15 or 16. I'd been playing for a couple of years, and I realized there was this summer program at Berklee College of Music in Boston that I really wanted to go to. I was really feeling drawn towards, but financially, it was a investment that I wasn't able to make, and so I just kind of decided to try and figure out a way. And so I started playing local gigs. I got over my stage fright and started playing local gigs wherever I could, coffee houses and churches and all kinds of places, and then played enough gigs to raise money to make a CD, and made that CD and sold enough. And with the help of, selling CDs and continuing to play gigs and community support, was able to go to that summer program. And then that's how I wound up being able to get the scholarship to go to the school that way, and just kind of never stopped touring and playing gigs. Played started playing mostly in Texas and then in the Northeast, and then just worked my way out to a whole bunch of other places. But yeah, just kept making records and kept playing shows, and it's what I love, and it's what I feel a big part of my purpose. And it's also been really a gift to be able to support a creative life through something I really care about.
I guess where I'm curious is I'm surrounded by tons of musicians. That's one of the things that I'm really grateful about growing up in Los Angeles, is that you grew up with lots of talented musicians. But the reality is there's a point in time, which I'm sure you face this too, is there comes a time where you choose either to go a very practical route, and then there's a, more ludicrous, not necessarily practical route where it is, to kind of try and just figure things out on your own. And so to me, it sounds like you definitely figured it out on your own. But when you start, it seems intimidating to a lot of people. So I guess I'm curious, what made you feel like that's what you wanted to do? I mean, I guess I'm curious if you always had that. Maybe someone talked you into it. Maybe you just thought about it for a while. What really was that driving force that made you want to go play, get over your stage fright, and just continue doing it?
I mean, I think it's a continual process of figuring it out and finding the balance and everything. Even though I've been doing this for a long time, it's not like I've kind of checked off the box of wondering what I'm doing with my life. It's like this continual unfolding. It always, there's times when you need to kind of pivot or incorporate new ideas or all kinds of things like that. But I would first gotta give thanks and credit to having really great support from my family and my community growing up. My dad is a freelance piano player, and has just really, really beautiful musicality in his heart and in his practice. And I've learned so much from that growing up and was really inspired by that. And also, it made the idea of being a musician for my life and livelihood not seem like too abstract or unreachable of a concept. And then on my mom's side, she is such an independent spirit and a hard worker that she really put a lot of effort into bestowing the idea that if you just work really hard for it, you can do what you want if you really, set your goals and your heart on it. So I feel like I had that great support, and from my community too. But also, I don't know, I was looking back at some old photos with friends recently from like when I was a kid. I think there's just always, I've always felt called to like make my own rules in varying senses of the days. And, I think even if it wasn't music, it's hard for me to imagine my life not being about music, but even if it wasn't music, it'd be something, because I think there is the creative force that animates us as humans, and it's always been important to me to really listen to that voice, and I felt gratefully supported in doing so. And yeah, I'm so wildly inspired by other folks that do that, in all kinds of fields. Creativity in many realms, but it's just a part of my value system,
Nice. And I honestly believe that is what most people that are in your position, people that actually pursue music and that are constantly pursuing their creative outlet, that's a mindset you have to have. You have to constantly have that drive to do it. And I guess I'm a little curious when you were describing earlier about, your first shows and you were getting over your stage fright and stuff. I want to explore that a little bit. How was your first couple times playing? Because I've seen you play at least once, and I've seen your stuff online, and you're a phenomenally talented musician. And
Thank
so
you. That's so kind.
You're welcome. But with that comes that curiosity of like, I wonder what it was like when she first started. So do you remember what it was like the first couple shows that you had?
Oh, it's a very tangible memory for me. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of in my mid-teens or so. And I just, it feels so vulnerable to share, especially singing, is so vulnerable. And I think that's what makes it powerful. And that's why we all relate to it as a species.
Yeah.
But but it does, for me at least, there was a big initial hurdle of being that raw and vulnerable in front of people. But it's been one of the greatest teachers of my life, opening up to that vulnerability. Yeah, I mean, initially, God, I was just terrified. I mean, I actually couldn't even sing in my home, in my family's home, if I thought that someone might be home. Like if either of
Really?
my parents were home or anything, I couldn't even sing in my room with the door closed because I felt so timid. And so that actually was a kind of a developmental force in my music early on, because I would do most of my practicing and my writing outside. So like I would go to the park and kind of hide in the trees and write songs.
Nice.
And as an extension of that experience, like most of my songs, not surprisingly, wound up being about nature or being about, the experience of spending time outdoors. And so
Yeah.
that actually really shaped me, because it was a good fear. It was a good way for me to learn to get over my fear, but also because it kind of drove me into having this other experience. But yeah, I was real nervous on stage in the beginning. I kind of think the only way to get over it is just by doing it and by facing that fear, or at least it was for me.
It's hard for me to believe because, again, you're phenomenal and your singing voice it's very angelic. If I can add to that,
Gratefully accepted.
So you were timid at home, which is something I find hard to believe. And then you go from being timid at home to practicing outside and writing your songs. And then you go to performing at coffee shops. What was what was like the first one that you played? And did you invite anyone to come out and see you? Or did you do like a secret one where no one knew who you were?
So somewhere in between, I suppose. The first quote gig, the first time I ever played in public was actually at the birthday party of my middle school librarian, which took place in my middle school library. And it pretty much peaked there. That was pretty much the coolest gig. I was super nervous, and I was playing, I just learned songs that I liked. I played like Mamas and the Papas, and when I first started playing guitar, of course, a lot of what was coming out was like John Mayer and Jason Mraz and all that. So I was learning a lot from those guys and 60s stuff. But I was super nervous playing early on, but I think it's a really interesting way to interact with the world, being on stage, either being on a physical stage or being on a stage in the internet somewhere. But it's kind of an experiment, and it's this beautiful experience of like giving and receiving and trusting and trying to just be really honest. And I got really into that, and it was really, I may not have thought of it that way then, but I think I was always attracted to kind of the authenticity that music demands of you if you want to grow in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people were so lovely. People were so supportive, because I think, when you watch people be vulnerable and share something with love, then oftentimes it brings us together. It's like sharing a meal with someone, or going for a run with someone or something. It's like you're kind of bonded. So people were so supportive and wonderful, and that was really transformative for me. And I guess I got kind of addicted to it because it's such a growth inducing experience.
There really isn't anything like playing on stage, or even just being on stage, performing something that you like to do in front of people, and to get that support and feel, I guess, the love. Really, it's hard to explain.
It's kind of like this. It's almost like a circuit, like an energetic loop, where, like, if you are open to it, and then you can, I take it really as like a responsibility. If I'm on stage, I really want to not take for granted the trust that people are putting in me by like giving me their time, or maybe even their hard-earned money.
Interesting.
And like respect that trust and like do my part, basically, which feels to me like being open, being honest, being as on top of my game as I can musically, so that like I can make that offering and kind of honor honor the situation that I'm in. But yeah, I think of it kind of as like an energetic loop, you know? I mean, you know that feeling, even if it's not on stage, even if it's like in conversation or anything, dance, whatever, where you feel like the flow of creativity move through you and then through the other people on the other end and then back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a very curious guy, so I'm always asking these questions. So the energy part, completely relate. I absolutely love it. Has there been any experiences where the energy wasn't there, where you kind of gave your best?
Sure. Oh, yeah. In 10 years? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of us musicians and artists have experienced that. So I'm curious about some of those moments in your life. I mean, how was it like to experience that maybe for the first time or maybe like one of the first times? And how did you handle it?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it happens like, it's not like some freak thing once in a while. Like it happens.
A lot.
And it even happens, there's like sort of micro examples of that happen all the time. Where maybe there's a lull in energy and you try and read it and figure out what you can shift, if anything, to elevate it, you know?
Yeah.
But definitely, I started out, one of the reasons that I kind of was able to get over some of my stage fright and also learn a bunch of tunes and get comfortable playing songs, because I used to do a bunch of 3-hour gigs of just cover material as background music. And I mean, I've still even done that, in recent years. I still do that sometimes. And that's a whole different way to interact with it. So it's like busking, sometimes you have to be responsible for upholding most of that energetic flow. Like
yeah.
Sometimes it's, the context or, I don't know, sometimes it's just not really there. And that's a good exercise too. And it like trains you for when it is. But yeah, I've definitely played shows where, I was just pretty much playing for myself and creative spirit or whatever it is, and occasionally someone's like, yeah, not bad.
They do the whole, just like every, like 2 people clap and like, yeah, way to go.
Yeah. Right. And then other people kind of do the guilt clap. I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, any kind of sort of affirmation. So for your shows, is there maybe like a go-to thing that you do when maybe the energy is not necessarily dead, but if the energy kind of dies down a little bit, is there something that maybe like you do that you maybe do vocally or like a lick, or maybe you throw a joke in there or something that you do to kind of liven up the mood?
I mean, almost the opposite. I don't know. I often think there's kind of a number of different routes I think you can go down, or like tools that maybe you can utilize if it feels like there's a lull or it's not really working, if it hit a wall. But sometimes I think it's like, I'll just pull back and get really quiet, and like people are like, what's going on? And then they tune in. Or sometimes it's the opposite. And sometimes I want to play, if it's a thing like nobody's listening, then maybe I'll play a tune that a lot of people feel connected to in a new way, and that'll perk up some ears. But other times, I mean, I've even, in a loving, respectful way, been on stage before where maybe there's some folks talking in the back and the folks that are really listening in the front are, that's not fair to them. And I'll say, hey guys, I'd love to play a quiet song here. If y'all are down to like do this with me, I'd really love to like get really vulnerable together and do something really gentle. Like, can you guys do that with me? And they're like, yeah, actually, you know what, I can. Or they're not, and they leave and go to the bar. So, I think it's okay to ask in a respectful way. And sometimes you just play something really funky and try to get people to move,
Now be honest with me. Have you ever gotten upset on stage, like in those situations at all?
No, not upset. That's not their, you can't take it personally. Like that's not on them. If people want to talk, or they're thinking about their work or what, their family or whatever, that's okay. But, all I can do is do my best.
I know I keep saying this. I just got to tell you, I'm really fascinated by just the way your demeanor, basically. I mean, I'm only speaking to you through a microphone, but I feel like I'm in the same room that you're in. Like it just feels totally personal, and you just seem so well composed.
Oh, that's really kind of you, Eddie. Thanks for, I mean, you can only do that if the context is set well and cared for well. So you're doing good work. Thanks, man.
Well, I appreciate it. Now, do you feel like part of that has always been part of who you are, or is that something that you've learned through your travels? Because you're obviously a very well-traveled woman and you're very experienced and you're doing what you love. Do you feel like you were always this way, or is that a product of your lifestyle?
I don't know. I mean, I think like communication wise or presence wise or I mean, I think who I am now is certainly it's an extension, it's an evolution of who I've always been or something that's been inside me. And it's also like an accumulation and a reaction to different things in my environment or people or ideas that have shaped me. But I don't know. I think I feel a pretty strong connection to who I was as a kid too. And there's a lot of things now in my life that when I do some reflection, it's easy to see where they came from,
Yeah.
or not where they came from, but how they were present 25 years ago too, or 20 years ago or whatever. But yeah, I think one of the most important things to me, or one of the things that I value most, is just being committed to growth, in music and in life and in all facets. I mean, I think that's what we're here to do. Just listen to whatever's coming through and try and keep growing.
How very true. Honestly, that's something that's important to mention for anyone that's creative or, doing this as a lifestyle. Is personally for me, I feel like growth is something very difficult to try and, address, especially, amongst life and whatever's happening, and especially with hardships and people trying to make something out of their career. It's something that's so important. And I'm glad you bring that up, just because I think it's something every musician should be aware of. And so I guess I'm curious, what do you feel like you've maybe grown in the past year?
I mean, there's certain things that I'm always trying to work on, and then there's certain things that are maybe specific to where I'm at in my life, that kind of chapters. I mean, I feel like I'm always trying to work on being a better communicator and storyteller and musician, and just kind of most authentic version of myself. But yeah, most recently, I feel I've always felt this way, but I think now more than ever, I feel a real call in the world to share I feel like a sense of urgency with music, and to talk about things that I think really matter, and that need to be communicated about now. I've got a single coming out in the next few weeks that takes on more of a political tone. And in the past, I've shied away from that a little bit, or I've been a little bit more universal about those kinds of topics. And this one's really quite specific. and
what's it about?
Yeah, I mean,
if I can ask.
It's about Donald Trump.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so right now, and in the last, if you say in the last year or so, I've really been getting over some of my fear of communicating ideas that aren't universally palatable even. And I say that it's not like I'm not trying to like start fights or anything, but I think it's my responsibility to be honest about what's on my heart and what's on my conscience. And I think I take that responsibility really seriously. And right now, the way that that's coming up for me and manifesting for me is that sometimes I want to write about things that that aren't just about sitting in the trees, as many of my songs early on were. But I also think it's really beautiful and important to sit in the trees. So mixing it up.
You got to balance it. Is there any fear on your behalf of how your fans or fan base, how they're going to take this new direction that you're going down?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's been part of the journey. Is that I don't want to alienate people, and I don't want to make anybody wrong. Because I don't know. I really value. I love people, and I love being able to connect through music, and so I want to like honor that connection, and I want to be really loving in the way that I communicate. But yeah, there's going to be some people that hate this song. And I think, working through some of that fear that comes up for me is a really good teacher, because it's like a lesson in trust that what's coming up for me in my heart is what I'm supposed to express. And so I have to kind of bow to that and do what it says.
I honestly think I don't want to say very brave, because honestly, I am a firm believer that that's exactly what you should do with your lifestyle. No matter,
Yeah, I think so.
no matter what side of the spectrum you are, no matter, what you're doing with your life, I think we all have that little voice or that little feeling in our hearts that tells us exactly where we
Yeah.
need to go. And just because of society or, whatever the excuse is, I feel like that voice gets quieter and quieter with so much stuff that we put on top of it. And
Absolutely.
and I'm obviously speaking metaphorically, I mean, it's
Well, both ways, really.
true, very true.
Yeah.
And this is something I've kind of grown in the past couple years too, which is why it resonated with me really well, is that for so long, I spent so much time trying to make excuses or whatever for like my decisions. But at the end of the day, I was ignoring what I really wanted to do.
Yep. Totally.
And it's scary to really take up that mantle and say, you know what? I keep feeling like this is the right choice and I have no evidence whatsoever that this is going to work out. In fact, exactly, right? And most of my friends may not agree, but for whatever reason, it just feels right to me. And it takes a lot of courage to just take that mantle and say, you know what? I'm just going to go with it and let's see what happens. But it's so liberating though, once you do.
It is. I mean, I think that's the affirmation that you get is this feeling of like, wait a minute, I am doing the right thing. Maybe there's not concrete evidence that points to like, yeah, Emily, just go for it. Yeah, Eddie, you got this. Like, but little signals kind of come up in the world. And I mean, for me, in my personal experience, when things are going well, it's because I am tuning into that voice and I'm trusting. And I think like in my opinion, that's like our job as humans. Or that's kind of our big challenge. And especially in working in a creative field, I think that's just like heightened responsibility. It's like, okay, if you've got a mic, you better be saying something that's real, or, any kind of instrument. I like really believe in that. I think it's like this constant series of exercises and challenges and opportunities to like level up and ditch your ego. And that's kind of what it's all about for me. And so, yeah, like right now I feel kind of challenged by that, but I trust it.
And you know what, though? The challenges make you better in the long run.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the only reason why you're as successful as you are now and why you're so, chill and so well composed is because you took the challenge to start performing and, do your thing. And I'm just intrigued and I am very grateful that you would bring something like this up because I don't necessarily want to say it this way, but I do feel like it's more rare nowadays. I don't know what the reasons it is for, whether it's, social media or whatever, but I do feel like the importance to follow that voice has become less important and it's become more important to, kind of pose an image, which, by the way, I'm not opposed to that just because being in the music industry, I understand about having a brand.
It's a balance.
It's a balance. Yeah. Exactly. It's what it is.
It's a dance, man. Yeah.
It's a dance. And I feel like people just keep shutting off that voice when in reality it should work in tangent with both sides.
And I think it's interesting, you bring up social media. And I definitely think it's like a double-edged sword, social media can definitely take us out of reality and of being present and of listening to that voice. It can like distract us a lot. But I think if we can learn to have healthy relationships with social media or whatever feels healthy for each individual person, I think it can do the opposite and it can be really healthy and it can be like, hey, I'm really working to tune into this voice and how can I communicate that most authentically and share my experience and also learn from other people that are doing that because there's so many. And I think that's the cool thing, I mean, everybody likes, like dog videos and stuff, you know,
Who
and like,
doesn't?
I mean, but actually dogs are following that voice all the time. That's why we like them. They're awesome. But also like the people that we really, I think when things feel creative and exciting in the internet realm, it's because people are tuning into that voice. People are being creative and people are treating it just like any other creative, expressive medium. And it's not necessarily just for like self-promotion, even though that's real too. Like, you know, it's important to be like, hey, I'm playing this show, but it's also important to just be yourself and to talk about things you care about. And I don't know, I think social media is a really powerful tool.
On that note, how do you balance that with, you know, who you are and what you care about? Because it seems like, well, it doesn't seem like it. You do a fantastic job on social media. I mean, I think you're everywhere.
Well,
I see
thanks.
your stuff a lot. No, you're welcome. I mean, I think it's well deserved. You do a really good job of displaying your talent. And so when you post stuff online, do you just decide to just kind of post whatever you feel like in the day, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mix. I love, I love the idea, and I try and do it in my practice of like just sharing music and sharing my process of music. But also, yeah, just trying to be myself. But also, I do balance in other ideas. Like, you know, I want to write things that are like connected to my values, and because I get back to that, like the idea of having a mic and having responsibility, and also sometimes hopefully provide a jumping off point for people that are in the social media realm to maybe come out to a show or connect with longer form songs than 60-second segments, or you know, sometimes there's like a call to action in that sense, but other times it can just be a conversation or a stage even, or a place to jam. And I've made a lot of really great friends from people that I connected with on social media and people at shows and all kinds of stuff. So I think it's a mix. I'm just trying to find a balance.
So with this balance of yours and the new direction that you're taking, I'm just curious, and I'm going to pry a little bit more. Do you have any further plans or future plans of other topics that you want to cover in terms of, you know, obviously your latest song is about politics. So I guess, and I bring this up because I follow your stuff and I look at your things, and you're always posting about, you know, certain things that you're not happy with, things that should change. You know, I agree with what you're posting. And so I'm curious if you're planning on attacking those, the word attacking isn't great, but talking about
lovingly attacking.
Yes. Basically, you know, talking about those issues in your future music and what some of those issues might be. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, the fortunate and unfortunate thing is that we just keep getting new stuff that needs to get talked about.
You've got unlimited supply of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we get free refills of social issues. But also, you know, trying to make improvements all the time. And I do see it happening. Partly due to people communicating about it on social media and rallying behind ideas. Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know in this moment what I'll be writing about a year from now, but I can surrender to it and trust it and say, yeah, I'm going to show up and I'll do what you tell me to, creative spirit or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of, I want to be honest about my love and my fear. And, you know, I keep playing. I really, I love the ability to use music, to even drive like both attention and money towards certain causes. So, you know, we're playing this benefit show coming up where some of the proceeds will go to Black Lives Matter. Some will go to the ACLU. Some will go to Planned Parenthood, you know,
nice.
Just trying to be useful where I can be in whatever way that may manifest.
And you know what? I think you're doing it right. You're basically standing up for what you believe in, and you're following your inner voice, and you're always pointing people in the right direction of what you believe in. But what I like about you...
So nicely phrased. I hope so.
Well, you know, the thing that I like about you is that obviously there's always multiple sides to every story. That's just a fact. People believe things because of reasons, and I think the importance of what you're doing with your music and with your page and with your social media is that you're just stating your case and you're sharing your love for what you do. And you just tell people, hey, I care about this. If you want to care about it with me, go do this. But you don't necessarily make anyone feel bad for not agreeing with you.
Yeah. I don't think we like much progress is to be made that way, I think like where I hope to do my work is in bringing people together and presenting ideas, but not alienating or making anyone feel wrong, except maybe our president. But yeah, I think it's great. It's great that we can have discussions and it doesn't have to be preaching. But yeah, I've definitely had like really interesting dialogues with folks in reaction to some of those things. And usually everyone learns something from that. And I don't know, it's a great opportunity.
Awesome. Well, I'm curious about your gig with Esperanza Spalding. When I saw your post on that and when I heard about that, I was very exciting because for those of you guys who don't know, Esperanza is a very talented bassist and she plays really amazing music.
Oh, man. She's huge. If you don't know, go find out because she's really the coolest.
She's the coolest and one of the most talented I've ever seen. And so I'm curious how you got to play with her and got on that tour.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of in that instance, that particular like catalyst for that gig is just through friends, and it wasn't necessarily a result. I'd been a fan of Esperanza for 10 years. I found her in high school and I listened to her first CDs like crazy. And I continued to, up until, this weekend when she recorded that new record. Yeah, I just love her art and her expression. And so it would have always been a dream of mine to play with her had I known that was even within the realm of possibility. But that's not even how it really came about, or there were mysterious forces that enabled it that I didn't control. It really like a good friend of mine, this really rad woman, Lainey Stern, she's like a New York guitar player, jazz and West African music. She had a dinner in New York with some friends that I went to, and Esperanza and I were both there, and we just had a good energy. And then later when Esperanza was looking for recommendations for someone to be in her new project, she asked around, and I think a couple of friends of mine may have tossed my name in the hat. My friend Haley Niswanger, who's a great sax player, and Lainey, and I don't know, it just came up that way. And so one day I was just cleaning my room or something, and Esperanza called, and I was fairly taken aback, but very pleasantly surprised.
It's a very specific detail. I was cleaning my room. Like you remember that moment. You were like, I was
listening to a Nancy Wilson record and cleaning my room. And then she's like, hey, Emily, it's Esperanza. And I tightened my grip on the phone so as not to drop it in surprise.
What did she tell you?
I think we chatted for a while, so she wanted to kind of gauge where I was at, and to see if her suspicions that I might be a decent fit for the project would be confirmed. And so, when she asked me where I was at creatively and what I was interested in, I said that I was really interested in collaboration and really hungry for the exploration of other creative mediums. And luckily for me, that's kind of what this whole project was about. It was this really experimental, kind of psychedelic, at times very abstract exploration of like theater and movement and music. And it was a really wild ride, but it was really, really beautiful. And I learned so much.
Was there an audition process at all, or did you pretty much just get the gig after that phone call?
Yeah, I mean, I think after that phone call, I didn't want to let myself get too excited because it wasn't fully set in stone. But she said, like, "Hey, I'll send you the songs." Like, she sent me, I think I got the songs like on Saturday or something, and then she was at my house on Monday, and to play through them, and so that was like a really fruitful, educational, hardcore learning experience, getting all these Esperanza tunes down. But then she came over and she sat at the piano and we played through everything. And yeah, and then I went to New York pretty soon after because that's, she's based there and that's where the band was based.
And how was the experience of playing with her live for like the first couple times? Was it intimidating at all?
Wow, every single time. It never stopped being mind blowing. She is, I've just never met anyone else like her. If I didn't know any better, I'd think she was maybe from a different planet. And actually, I don't know any better, and she very well may be.
How true?
Yeah, it's like I think she's on like the highest echelon of genius that we have as a species. Like she just has no barrier between the creativity that's flowing through her and bringing it into existence with her bass and her voice and her words and her energy and everything. It's just she grows in every second, and she expects it of everyone around her, and it's really powerful. I'm so inspired by her, and she's so fearless.
As I would expect. I mean, her music is just, I mean, I feel like that's a great way to describe her music. It's just fearless music.
Yeah, she's super, super fearless just in her whole life. And there's not, again, it's like, it's this crazy, beautiful thing, right? I mean, I really think this is kind of the goal, but there's like there's no wall between like her music and her life. She just lives it all the time, and it's awesome.
Now, what do you mean by that she lives it, all the time? I'm curious.
Like every moment is an opportunity for creativity. Even just in conversation, like she would put us on the spot and have us freestyle all the time. Or, like there was a segment of the show where we had a dance off, me and the other two singers. And
Really?
She'd be like, okay, guys, you can't do any dance moves that you did on the tour before this. You have to do all new ones.
What?
It's like, oh, man, okay. It's like I wasn't ready, but I guess I'll get ready.
Wow. And so did you just learn new dance moves on the spot, or like how'd that work out?
Yeah, that's what are you going to do? You're not going to say no to Esperanza Spalding.
True. Did you bust a moonwalk? I feel like that's like the game ender.
One of my most fun. I did the moonwalk on stage at the Apollo, and it was like this sold out Apollo, and I was like, well, damn it, I can go to sleep really happy tonight. Like that was weird and so awesome.
That sounds like such a fun tour to be on. Gosh, I'm envious.
It was a blast. Yeah, it was really a blast, and I mean, I think she's as cool as it gets, really, and it was an amazing band, of course.
Yeah, I don't even know I can't even pronounce the word because I'm just excited thinking about it. And do you feel like that experience of, working with her and being on that tour and all that, did that improve or affect the way that you approach music?
I'm sure it did. When you're in it, it's harder to watch things happen gradually. But I'm certain that it did because, just the level of creativity and performance and, dedication to craft and discipline and everything that she exhibits. You have no choice but to soak it in being around her. And it was cool for me too, to kind of take a break from doing my own thing and, stretch my creative, abilities and the way that I applied myself. And, I think about her and her musicality all the time. And of course, keep in touch too. She's a good friend, and I just love her. But I know that it must have. I think about music probably differently than I did before.
Well, I'm curious about other musical projects that you're working on. I know we talked about your single. We talked about Esperanza Spalding, and I think you might have mentioned to me earlier that you're working with Mike Gordon.
Yeah. Got I mean, a lot of solo stuff coming up, but I'm also really, just always interested in collaboration. And the thing with Mike, I'm really excited about because I've actually never met him, but we've been in touch just sort of through email and phone since this project kind of came to rose to the surface, or my involvement in it. And I'm really excited because I think he's also like just a hyper creative person. And so that, so far we're just doing this one show, and I'm going to like sing and play guitar in his band. at this show in Florida, and I think we'll kind of take it from there. But I'm super excited to play with him, and his band is really cool folks. So yeah, that's going to be a neat one.
For those of you guys also that might not know who Mike Gordon is, which I highly doubt you guys don't know who he is, but he's the bass player for Fish.
Yeah.
Which is another incredible band. If you guys haven't checked that out, don't type in Fish. That's not how it's spelled. It's definitely Phish. And Mike is just another phenomenal musician, which I'm excited for you that you get a chance to work with him.
Thanks. I really look forward to it. His record just came out on Friday, and I've been blasting it, and it's cool stuff. It's a lot of fun.
You know, the one thing I love about podcasting and talking to folks is that you really never know where the conversation is going to go.
Totally.
And it's my favorite part of it, really. In a way, it's kind of another creative route for me. And I love learning.
That makes a lot of sense. It's cool you're doing this.
Well, thank you. I just love learning about people and understanding how they do. And I love the way you think. I just have to throw that out there.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a pleasure to chat with you. It's really nice. Flowed very easily.
Well, there's really not much more to be said. Well, correction, there's tons more we could say, but I feel inspired by you, and I want to go out and just do my own stuff more now because
that's awesome, man.
Well, yeah, I love what you're about. And so I guess if there's someone out there, right, that's listening to this and I don't know what stage in their music career that they're in, maybe they are playing, maybe they're not, they're just trying to figure out how to get to the next step. What advice would you give them? Stuff that's maybe applied to you, or maybe not, but what would you say to anyone that's trying to kind of pursue their career, push it forward, and kind of listen to that inner voice that they keep on hearing?
Oh, man. I mean, I think, kind of my mantra that I keep coming back to is just being authentic to myself and the creativity that's flowing through everybody. So I think committing to that and wanting to like be of service to that idea is the most powerful thing in my own experience. And, I think there's a lot of ways to step into that, having daily practices. For me, it's like waking up and journaling, doing some meditation, getting some exercise, moving the blood through my body, and being connected to the earth and people I love and all that, but also just like having discipline with my instrument and the ways that I'm kind of nourishing my mind and my spirit. So I think committing to that and just going for it. It's like this never ending, never always unfolding process. But it's a beautiful thing. So I'd encourage everyone to explore it regardless of career ambitions or whatever. It's just a beautiful thing to have in your life, music.
You owe it to yourself to explore it as far as you can take it.
There you go, man.
Yep. Especially if you love to do it. Again, I'm a curious guy. I'm guilty for that.
It's a good thing. That's probably why you're a good musician and a good conversationalist and everything, or one contributing factor.
Thank you. I'm curious what other stuff you might do outside of music, to kind of help you relax or to just, clear your mind. You mentioned running, you mentioned journaling, which I think is highly important. If you guys haven't ever tried writing your ideas down, you definitely should try it at least once. What other stuff do you like to do?
I mean, just for fun, I just go out and see a lot of shows, and I spend a lot of time outdoors, and I really love hiking and yoga and meditation, and this is really dorky, but I like because I didn't have a place for so long, I was just kind of floating and staying on the road. Like I really love, I love like spending time at home and making food, and I live with like 4 other people that I really love, and just like spending time at home and practicing. I don't know, but I love moving my body and trying to. I really think that the way that we play music is an extension of our physical and our spiritual work and beings, and so trying to like nourish those and have a lot of fun with those, I think makes you a better player.
There you have it. Wise words from Emily. Honestly, you keep a well-balanced life.
It's a work in progress.
It always will be till the day we die.
We're lucky. That's a cool thing.
Yep. And honestly, like I said before, I feel very inspired by what you said. You live a very well-balanced life. You have time for fun and time for work and all that. And I highly encourage anyone out there that's listening to this to really just, like I said earlier, you owe it to yourself to give it a shot, because life is really uncertain. I mean, I don't mean to sound like a downer or anything, but I could die today or whatever. But the reality is, if you've been giving a gift, you kind of owe it to yourself and to Earth and to the universe to really just explore it as much as you can.
There it is.
Well, thank you so much again for your time,
Thank
Emily.
you, Eddie. Yeah, I look forward to checking out more of your music too. And nice chatting with you.
Likewise.
And thanks for listening, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Emily. I know I definitely learned a lot from her because she's absolutely fearless. I mean, she's putting her passion into her work and standing up for what she believes in with her music. And you know what? I think that's something that we could all remember and always try to apply to our music, because the reality is, if you're not passionate about what you do, if you do not stand for what you love, then what's the point of doing it? And so take it from Emily. Be passionate, stand by what you like, and listen to that inner voice that you have. Because I guarantee you, we can spend so much time ignoring that voice, but at the end of the day, what you hear inside you is what you want. And so go after it. And I guarantee you that you'll find success when you listen to that inner voice.